What is the one defining quality of a champion? And I think you'll be surprised to know what that is. The one defining feature or the one defining attribute of a champion is simply this. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of It's All of Your Business, the podcast where we take the struggles, setbacks, and failures, those often embarrassing, it's none of your business moments. We explore them, we embrace them, and we make them all of your business. My name is Nicholas Woolsey, and it is my goal to help you through those difficult moments that we often don't want to talk about. I'm excited about what I have to share with you today. Let's get started. Welcome again, everybody. So great to have you. This is Season 1, Episode 1 of It's All of Your Business. Just kind of like a brief layout before we actually kick this episode off. We're kicking off Season 1, which is basically me telling my story, growing up the way I did, not born into a family of any sort of privilege, money, status, and going through the hard times to come out to where I'm at now. I am by no means a finished product. I am by no means what I would consider ultimately successful. Though I have periods of success in my life, there have been a lot of hard times and a lot of difficulties. And so in Season 1 of It's All of Your Business, we are going to talk about those times, those struggles, disappointments, failures, learning opportunities. We're going to uncover them. Some of them are embarrassing. Some of them are maybe a little shameful. And I think it is important that we get into this and learn about the things, that we sweep under the rug that are nobody's business until we're kind of out on the other side. And we're able to learn ultimately what those things were that helped us to get to where we are today. During Season 1 of this podcast, I think it'll go maybe 6 to 10 episodes ultimately. And from there, at that point, we'll take a week or two break while we line up interviews. And then we will come back and we will start interviewing people who have had success where they're at now, but we'll go back and talk about the things that were difficult for them to get to that successful point. We're going to be talking to a lot of people, both in business, finance, as entrepreneurs. Eventually, we'll move our way towards, athletes, maybe semi-pro. It'd be awesome to get some pro athletes, some military leaders. We're going to go really, really deep on this subject of exploring the failures to see how people have learned from them and bounced back. Recently, I went through some hard times of my own, and it was a little bit of a kind of a dark period for a few months. I can be honest with that. And yes, I started digging deep into what makes a champion a champion. What is the one defining quality of a champion? And I think you'll be surprised to know what that is. The one defining feature or the one defining attribute of a champion is simply this: a champion refuses to give up. A champion gets up one more time. It doesn't matter how many times they're knocked down. It doesn't matter what they're going through. It doesn't matter how they've struggled or what the setbacks are. A champion gets up one more time. And so if they're knocked down 7 times, they get up an 8th time. And if they're knocked down 50 times, they get up that 51st time, and they just don't stop. And ultimately, it's those failures that knock us down time and time and time again. As long as you continue getting up, you are on your way to becoming a champion. So let's rewind 33 years and go back to March 1986 and kind of maybe just talk about where I came from. March 1986, I was born to my mother. She was 17 years old at that time. My biological father, who happened to be in the Army, shortly after my mother became pregnant with me, he was stationed in Germany. And so uh, pretty much not in the picture for my childhood at all. I tried making connection with him in my younger years, and there were some roadblocks in the way. He had built a life and a family over in Germany, and so it just did not work out. And because we wanted to not disrupt his family there, we kind of left him alone. After trying to get a hold of him a few times, we just backed off. Grew up from birth to age 5 in Northern California with my single mother. Growing up in the house of a single mother, teenager, with not a lot of family around. I don't remember a lot of it, but I do have a few vivid memories. I do have a memory of, I don't know, maybe I was 3 years old, maybe 4, but I have a memory. It was a Saturday night. I know that because we were going to the little car show that we had in town on Main Street. Every Saturday night, they would have a hot rod show. The hot rods would drive down Main Street, and we were on our way there. And I remember we stopped at Taco Bell, and my mom let me get 2 burritos supremes. I don't know why I remember this. It was something that was quite impressionable. It was impressionable on my mind at that moment that I would get 2 burrito supremes, maybe because I was so young, maybe because I was not ordering off the kids menu, I don't know. But for some reason, the 2 burrito supremes on the hot rod cruise night in Woodland, California, when I was 3 or 4 years old, just really, really stuck with me, stuck in my memory. So there was that. I remember nights growing up. My mom was dating another guy at this point, and just me being like, I would be at home with the babysitter, playing video games or what have you, on that original NES Nintendo system. I remember playing RoboCop. That was my thing. I don't know how many video games I had, if any, besides RoboCop. That's the only one I remember. But I remember my mom just coming home very late at night from these dates, and maybe just like a feeling of loneliness, right? I don't recall having friends as a child. Maybe I did. I don't really recall that. It was kind of like a muddled period. Anyways, we'll fast forward to when I was 5 years old, moved from Northern California to Southern California, just north of San Diego, in northern San Diego County, to a little city called Escondido. And I grew up in Escondido. And I remember growing up on a particular street, Grape Street. And Grape Street was, I don't know, maybe like at the time, I feel like it was the worst street a human could grow up on. And the thing that I really paid a lot of attention to was that there were no sidewalks. Everyone's yard was just dirt. There were no sidewalks. And I thought that it was so weird that there were no sidewalks for people to walk down. Everyone was walking the street or walk through the dirt. I remember we would drive down that street, Grape Street. Kids would throw rocks at your car. Like that was the normal thing. Like you're going to get pinged as you're driving out because kids are throwing rocks at your car. I remember one Christmas morning, if memory serves me correctly, Christmas morning, the police were out on the street because a neighbor their house had been broken into and they were murdered Christmas Eve night in their home. Not a great situation. Our house was burglarized once or twice in that neighborhood. It was just not, I don't know, it was a weird place to grow up. And then we moved out of there and we moved to a different area of town. A little bit better, I would say. It was a historic district and a lot of the houses were really nice. Our house was not really nice. And so in this house, I remember there was a drive-by shooting one night. We were sitting in our car. We had just arrived home. Car goes flying past. Several police cars behind. The car in the front that's being chased is shooting at the police. It's kind of like a shaking moment, right, in your life. to have that happen close to your home. I remember in a certain part of the backyard, we were on a corner. And so the backyard of our house had this little brick wall. It was about 4 feet high. And there was one little corner that I liked to play in because it was on a slope and I could kind of like dig in the dirt and make little roads for my Hot Wheels cars. And I started finding needles, syringe needles back there. And so I carefully collected them. I would say I was probably, I don't know, 9 years old or so. I started collecting them and taking them to the house across the street because I knew a police officer lived there. And turns out heroin needles. So that's not great at all. And that kind of like undermines the feeling of security in your life. Growing up knowing that there are drugs so close around, that kind of sucks. So those was just sort of like some of the things, like some of the scenarios and environments where I was growing up in. At the age of 10, my mom married my stepdad, at the time stepdad. It was a tough time for me, I would say. I don't think that it was not a healthy relationship between any of us. I would say that. I don't say anything like this to be negative toward him or toward my mom or anything. I have no animosity towards anybody. I love everybody. I have no anger towards anybody or resentment. It was just kind of like a time in life where things were just not great, right? And those times come. That's what this whole podcast is about, is exploring those times, talking about them and understanding how we get through them to stand up again, right, when we've been knocked down. And so my mom married my stepdad, and he and I, to say that we did not get along would be putting it very lightly, and from his perspective, okay, I'm not a stepdad right now. I am a dad. I'm not a stepdad, but I try to empathize with his situation, being in his 30s, marrying someone that has 2 kids and trying to create this life of harmony. But you're creating harmony in sort of like a disruption because you're kind of stepping into a position. You're sort of disrupting the flow that's there and trying to create a new flow. It can't be easy. I empathize with that. That cannot be an easy thing to accomplish. So there was a lot of friction there. There were some good times, and there were a lot of like really not good times from my perspective. One thing I do remember vividly with no hesitation is that through all the good times and all the many bad times, there was little to no money. And I'm not going to try to place fault or blame on anybody because that's not what I'm about. I'm just recognizing the fact that there was not money in the family, and there was a lot of struggle. There was a lot of difficult times. There was a lot of going without because literally we had no other option but to go without. When my mom and stepdad got married, there was not a lot of money, like I said. And so the church that we were attending did something which I think is really, really clever and helpful. They did what was called a grocery shower. And that's basically where all the people in the church would get together and they would buy groceries for the family that was, the couple that getting married. And they would bless you with all these groceries, like carloads of groceries, and a lot of non-perishable foods. And so I remember being 10 years old, like, this was amazing. We had a house full of food, and one gentleman bought a 50-pound bag of beans and a 50-pound bag of rice, and those beans and rice held us for a really, really long time. I won't say every single day, but it felt like every single day we were eating beans and rice. And, bless my mom and her heart and creativity, because I feel like she learned how to make every variation of beans and rice that could ever be created, right? I feel like that was the case. I do remember having, hamburger mixed in with our rice. And that was, I don't know, at the time, it was not a great meal. But now it's one of my favorite meals, right? Because I like to go back into that. I make that meal for myself. I don't make my family eat it. I let them try it one time and nobody liked it and they thought I was weird for eating it. But occasionally I will go and I'll make that meal because I want to feel and taste that level where I came from, so I don't forget like how far I've come from there, right? I don't know. Maybe that's a weird ritual or thing to do. I don't know, but that was something that I remember as like a really heavy weighted checkpoint in my life was ground up hamburger meat and rice, and that's it, or just rice and beans, and that's it. This was at the time when McDonald's was doing their 29-cent hamburgers or 39-cent cheeseburgers on Sunday. And so Sunday was a special time because after Sunday church, we would go and we'd go to McDonald's and everybody in the family would get a 39-cent cheeseburger for Sunday lunch. Just one. And then if you're still hungry, you guessed it, there's rice and beans at home for dinner. These, I don't know that you would call them struggles because you can't complain about having food when there's so many people, right, that don't have food. But for what I would like to have been in my life, it was a struggle, right? And then I know my mom felt the struggle. You don't want to feed your kids the same meal every day. I know that as a parent. I want to give my kids variety. I want to give them the best. And so in a way, it sort of was a struggle. I can't go and complain that I never got to eat because that would be completely false, right? I did get to eat. I was blessed. It's just that the level that we were at was not a level of abundance. And so my life has been a journey to get away from that lack of abundance into abundance. And that's sort of where we're going to stop today with this podcast is we all have these struggles. And to some, our struggles may seem like nothing. And to others, our struggles may seem like insurmountable odds. But what really, really matters is what it means to us and learning to overcome these things. I don't have all the answers, right? And as we explored these different failures and hurdles and things people go through, I'm not going to have all the answers. But as we go through all of this, we're going to learn the one key that we need to have, the one defining trait, the one factor that we need to implant in our life, and that is the ability to get back up and keep going. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I look forward to next week's episode where I'm going to walk you through how our family made money to make ends meet. It was truly a family operation in every respect, and how I, as a adolescent going into my teens, learned how to make money myself because there was no other way for me. With that being said, I just want to say thank you guys for listening. If you haven't already subscribed to my podcast, I would really greatly appreciate it if you do, and turn on the post notifications so that you get updated whenever we drop a new episode every Friday. And then maybe give it a 5-star review if it turns out to hold value for you. With that being said, take care.